and I hope it's you can hear me and see me. Um, just wait for a couple of minutes and then get to start. My For those that know me and those that don't know me before now, my name is Yomi Faweimi. So I'm ready to start. Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, anywhere you're calling from or where you're joining me from. Thank you for joining me today. I don't take it for granted. It's an interesting time for me to share with us about something that I feel is very, very important. And I'll be talking about proving sexual harassment in court or workplace panels, a victim's guide to evidence. Just for the sake of those that are just joining us, I'm doing this because of many reasons, and some people will assume some reasons, but I'm doing this because of many reasons. But before I start by telling you what are my reasons for that, let me start with a couple of caveats so that we are clear on what this is all about. Number one is the subject is sexual harassment, not rape, right? I'm talking about sexual harassment and not rape. It's important for us to understand the difference between both. Now, rape is defined in law in different ways. Different laws, different jurisdictions define it. So the subject for today is not rape. It is sexual harassment. That's the first caveat because many people immediately start to think about rape once they hear sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is defined by various laws, but it's generally described as any unwanted sexual activity, which could be verbal or non-verbal. Now, rape is, however, defined in most jurisdictions as penetration. Now, each country or each state defines what is was penetrated. So, in some countries, they define it as a penetration of the female sexual organ, the vagina, but some countries have expanded it now to the extent that men and boys could also come into the definition when it comes to rape. So, the subject is not rape, the subject is sexual harassment. Number two is this is not about a male versus female conversation because what happens many times is that, and this is very typical about men like me, when we hear sexual harassment, we initially feel it's women that accuse men of sexual harassment. Well, the data shows that truly we have had more cases of women accusing men of sexual harassment. But it doesn't mean every sexual harassment case is a woman versus male issue. Sometimes it's actually male versus male. Sometimes it's actually boys versus men. Sometimes it's actually boys versus women. We had a recent incident in Lagos, in Nigeria, where in an hotel we had a reported case where a man violated a boy. So sexual harassment is not about male violence. So because immediately you talk about sexual harassment, many males typically have that defense of, oh, they want to attack us. No, that's not the subject here. The subject here is harassment by anyone. And that's why I'm focusing on the victim. The third thing I want to bring as a caveat is that this is a victim focused approach. My goal is to help the victim. So if you notice by using that approach, the idea is what do we do to help the victim, right? Because somebody will ask me, so what about if the person was telling a lie? That's We're not yet talking about telling a lie or not. We're talking about the person that came with a report. At that instant, that is the allegation of a victim, right? It is the court or the administrative system that will determine whether there was who is guilty or not. So we're not talking about who is guilty or not. So I'm starting with those. The last one, this is not about Senator Godswill Akpabio and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. Many people feel that's why I'm doing the video. While there is an allegation of sexual harassment in that case, that's not why I'm doing it. Because the reality of it is that the data shows that the number of people that have been victim of sexual harassment is more than one person. Actually, the data from the United Nations says every woman in the world, over 33% of them will be victims of sexual harassment in their lifetime. Now, somebody is going to ask me, but does that look true? Don't argue with me. Just ask your wife, ask your daughter, ask your auntie, ask your niece whether they have experienced any form of sexual harassment in their life. And you'll be shocked. Teachers, parents, aunties, uncles, relatives, loved ones that take advantage of people. So it's the conversation is about the victim, right? Now, what about if the person is telling a lie? That's not the subject. It's about the victim. And it is the courts or the legal system that determine who is telling a lie. Okay, so why am I doing this? The first reason why I'm doing is that April is the month against sexual violence in North America. In Canada and in the USA, the month of April has been described as that month. Every year, April, every president of the United States signs a proclamation declaring April as a day, as a month against sexual violence. So President Donald Trump signed for the USA. Recently, also done in Canada. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, we don't have anything like that. But April is a month against sexual violence, so that's one of the reasons why I'm doing. The second reason why I'm doing this is because of the increasing cases of sexual harassment in the world. I'm going to read a sentence to you, a statement to you to understand it. Please listen. It is sadly interesting to know that sexual harassment, though more notorious in tertiary institutions, is quite rampant in primary and secondary institutions too. I'm going to repeat again. Sexual harassment is notorious in tertiary institutions, but it is quite rampant in primary and secondary institutions. Can you guess who said that? And about which country? That's a statement by the chairman of the ICPC, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Commission, Dr. Musa Aliyu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. That man said that sexual harassment happens in tertiary institutions, secondary institutions, and now primary institutions. Now, that should get all of us concerned because we're talking about kids. And this is the ICPC. And if you note, the ICPC has taken this issue about sexual harassment so important that they have created a section in ICPC that deals with sexual harassment. Now, this man, after all their research, has shown and told us that, wait, it's not more about universities. I mean, because you have a lot of emphasis on the universities. There are laws about university, there are policies. He said it's now a problem in primary schools in Nigeria, sexual harassment. 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, in a school in Ojodu in Lagos, the newspapers reported about sexual harassment that happened in the school. It was actually a sex for mark case. Ojodu, Lagos. It's a government school. I can't verify whether it happened or not, but it was reported. It was also reported that the whistleblower in that sex for mark situation was summoned to be questioned. Can you believe that? That the person who was a whistleblower suddenly came under interrogation for blowing the whistle. It's all you can verify what I say. Now, that's second reason. Our kids are now exposed because some of us are kids in secondary school. The third reason why I'm interested is the fact that I think we are playing with fire by ignoring the question of our sexual harassment. Personally, I've had to deal or read about cases of sexual in various contexts, education institution, religious institution. One of the biggest painful things that happened to me last year was about a sexual harassment situation that affected somebody that is one of my spiritual mentors. And it was a bad case. So when we talk about sexual harassment, because I have friends, many of my friends who are pastors, who are church leaders, who say, "Oh no, why are you bothered? You are supposed to be a Christian. Why are you bothered about sexual harassment?" I'm bothered because it's also happening to us as church leaders, as preachers of the gospel. And whether you like it or not, if you read your Bible very well, there were many incidences of sexual harassment. In the first book in the Bible, Genesis, two clear incidences of sexual harassment happens, right? Two clear incidents, of which one was a rape, as early as Genesis. I'm not going to talk about what happened in the other book. I'm saying in the book of Genesis, the first of the 66 books, why we were there. So it's something that we should be bothered. So if you're not bothered because children are involved, you should be bothered because you are religious, right? So that's why I'm bothered. And then the last reason is because sexual harassment allegations are getting more prominent in the workplace. One data I showed said that 33% of women in Nigerian workplaces have experienced sexual harassment. Last week, 2 weeks, one of Nigerian's very prominent tipsters, the lady that works very well, does Adaku. I remember that's the name she bears in Jennifer's diary. Came out to say that she was sexually assaulted. She said so, and she said so. It happened in the workplace by a colleague. I mean, that's not a young person. Now, I'm saying that for you to realize because at the same time, some people will say this sexual harassment thing. I mean, who gets involved? So this is not a new person coming to the industry. This lady openly declared she was sexually assaulted, and it was a workplace scenario. And this is somebody that's established. We have a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that said that she was publicly assaulted by she was harassed, as she claimed, by the Senate president. So women that are very high have alleged sexual harassment. Women in high school, in secondary, in universities have also alleged sexual harassment. Boys. Now, that is very important because in the case I mentioned earlier, the man that assaulted this boy, the boy came out to say so. We have had cases where boys have said they were also sexually harassed. We have also had cases where sexual harassment has also been against the disabled. I mean, one of the things I found last year, if you remember, I did a video on in the 16 ways of campaign against violence about women, the showing that the most sexually harassed category of females in Nigeria are actually disabled people. That's what the data shows us. So we're not just dealing with sexual harassment, we're actually saying people are taking advantage of disabled people and doing that. So so that's the context I will be starting from. So let me quickly talk in the context of sexual harassment. What is the legal framework? Everybody is protected from sexual harassment. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights says you have a right to dignity, right? And you have a right not to be discriminated against on the basis of sex. So you have a Universal Declaration of Human Rights that protects everybody in the world. Now, beyond that protection, there's also what they call continental protections. There are laws in continent that protect everyone against sexual harassment. So, for example, in Africa, there's the African Charter of Human and People's Rights that protects you against discrimination and the loss of your dignity. So I've described what happens globally, I've described what happens continentally. There are also national protections. So in Nigeria, for example, Section 42 of our Constitution, 1990, guarantees you protection against being sexually harassed. Now, I'm mentioning global laws, continental laws, national laws. Now, there are also specific laws that protect you. So the Violence Against and Persons, the VAP law in Nigeria, for example, says you cannot be sexually arrested, molested, or harassed. There are also plethora of decided cases. And like I told my dear friend, who is also watching, thanks for joining, Father, plethora of cases I'll be talking about here. Now, first thing I want us to know is that if you're a victim of sexual harassment or you know someone that's sexual harassment, please know that sexual harassment could be criminal and is also civil, right? It is criminal and civil. Now, so if you want to go ahead with it, you can either approach it as a criminal case or you can approach it as a civil case, or you can do both. Now, what does that really mean? What is criminal versus civil? So sexual harassment, I say, is both criminal and civil. So what is criminal? Criminal is offense against the state. So if you are sexually harassed and you decide to go and report to the police, that means you are pursuing a criminal intervention in that matter. So in that case, the state is involved. The police will be the one to prosecute the case. The police will be the one to get you a lawyer. You will be a witness. And then finally, if you win the case, what the other party will get is either a fine or imprisonment. You're not going to get any benefit. So once you go criminal, you are not going to benefit. The state will benefit and the person could be punished. But the problem is that if you go criminal, you have certain challenges. Number one is that the police will be the one to prosecute. So the policeman has a right to say, I'm not going to prosecute the case. Number two, the policeman could do what they call in Nigeria lack of diligence in prosecution. So the policeman will say, I'm not going to do that. Third thing is that if the policeman decides to prosecute the case, the judge could be influenced. If the policeman decides to prosecute the case, the attorney general of the state or the federation could be influenced. and would say he doesn't want to prosecute the case. There's a current case in Nigeria where a lecturer in a university was accused of sexual harassment by students. This case was sent to the police. The Nigerian police force said he should be free. The case was sent to the Attorney General of the Federation, who also said he should be free. But because it was a state case, the Attorney General could not withdraw the case. So they now prevail on the state to do that. But the state said they wouldn't do that. So, can you see the challenge of going criminal when it's sexual harassment? Please, do you notice that in the case of Senator Akpabio and Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan, most of the defenders of Senator Akpabio are asking why she did not go to the police. I want you to check all the videos, whether it's his lawyers, it's his friends, it's his associates. They keep asking that question. She should have gone to the police. She should have gone to the police. Why do they want her to go to the police? They want her to go to the police because it will become a criminal matter. When it becomes a criminal matter, then the police will decide whether to investigate or not. So you get why they are asking why she did not go to the police. I've also seen quite a number of media people also argue, but she should have gone to the police. Hey, why should she go to the police? Because if she goes to the police, she has given the responsibility to the police. And of course, it's easy to influence the case going forward. So, if you are sexually harassed, don't go to the police in the first instance. The reason is that you may lose. And you ask myself, oh, is it because Nigeria? No, that's also what happens in the US. If you remember the case of the death of the man that was killed that led to Black Lives Matters, if you realize that they got a lot of relief from the court by going civil. So in the US, what typically happens is that people are assaulted, they go civil. So, and that's why I want to encourage. So don't go to the police, right? Don't go to the police, because once you go to the police, somebody say, am I saying that the police are not trustworthy? I'm not saying the police are not trustworthy. I'm saying the police have a lot of decisions to make. One, they can decide that there is no case. The law allows them to say that. Two, they can decide to not diligently prosecute the case. So, civil, let me, that's criminal. The second option you have, and that's what I want you to do, is to consider what is called the civil option. In this case, you are approaching the court as a civil matter. In that case, you will be the one that will choose your lawyers. Of course, that's going to cost money because you're going to pay the lawyer. You will get remedies that are financial because you'll be paid damages. And you can also get remedies that are injunctive, that can direct the person you're accusing not to do what they want to do. You can get money if that is your interest. You can get money to cover your pain or whatever you are paid. You can get money for the lawyer you hired, right? Yeah, if you go civil, you can get punitive damage against the person. In that case, or you can get them to have a restrictive order that says this person shall not come near you, this person, the organization shall protect you, and things like that. So that's civil. In a civil case, if it is sexual harassment, you have a better chance of winning very easily. So my first recommendation is, please go to a civil court. If the sexual harassment happens in a workplace, please go to the National Industrial Court. National Industrial Court is the best court in Nigeria. Actually, I personally believe that the best run court system in the world is the National Industrial Court of Nigeria. That court is an excellent court. You are likely going to get justice. My dear friend, Barrister Funsho Ejiti, who operates as a lawyer in the US, is asking me, how do you fund it prior to the decision? The Nigerian law system allows you to do contingent funding. I'm going to cite a case. The lady actually went to an NGO. An NGO gave her a lawyer. And the NGO didn't charge her. You can decide to go to the legal aid of your church, if your church has a legal aid unit, and they will represent you and you will get justice. So I recommend you should go civil. Now, when you go civil, there are two things you need to put at the back of your mind. Now, please note, I am also specific to people that have decided that I am going to fight this and through the legal system. Please, if you are still working in an organization and you want to keep your job, you don't need to do this at the moment, right? Because the employer will likely take a different stance once you say, I'll talk about that later. But in this case, you have decided, okay, I am going to fight this thing out. So you have decided I'm going to go civil. So first thing I've decided to go civil, I'm going to National Industrial Court. Two things are very important that you need. You need witnesses and you need evidence. Thanks, Aruna, for joining. Thanks for joining us. This is my Aruna has been my friend since the 80s. Thanks, my elder Adeleke, for also joining. One of my friends in the 80s. So, yeah. So happiness, Oluwada is saying, is civil no more like going personal? Very great question, happiness. You ask. You, it's personal. It may not be personal. So if you decide to go civil, you can decide to either sue the person that harassed you or sue the institution that was supposed to protect you. So in Nigeria and in America and in Canada and the UK, the employer or the institution has a duty of care to protect you. So you can sue your employer for sexual harassment committed by a staff, committed by a senior staff, committed by management, committed by a customer. Thanks, brother Rotimi Abishade. Thanks, sister Toyin, for joining. Now, so you can, so you work for Mr. Biggs, or you work for Accenture, or you work for MTN or whatever, and somebody harassed you, a customer, a supplier, an employer, whosoever. You can go to a civil court and sue your employer because he has a duty of care to ensure that doesn't happen to you. You can go to sue your employer and also sue the person that sexually harassed you. You have that choice. So somebody happiness question that is it not going personal is, I would say, I will not use the word personal, I'll use the word direct, because your employer could also be sued. He has a duty of care. Please note, and this is why I think those of us that run various units need to be very conscious. If somebody, if for example you're a pastor, somebody comes to your church and you have a video and the person says he was sexually harassed, they can sue your church for that harassment. So that's why we need to be careful. Thanks on Sabib. Sabib is joining from Canada. So you have decided to go all out. I said you need two things. You need evidence and you need a witness. The biggest thing to your advantage is you have both. One, remember, you are the one that alleged there was sexual harassment. So that means you're a witness. You're a witness. It was because you said you were harassed. That's why you are going to court. So you are your biggest witness. So people will say, okay, where is the witness? You are the first witness. Actually, do you know, even if you go to a criminal case and you rely on the police, do you know the police will actually ask you to be a witness because you are the most credible witness? So you have that. Now, but the problem is that, hey, thanks, Mr. Ogu, for joining us. Now, so, okay, so questions again from Barrister Ejiti says that, can you go civil without going through the internal structure of the organization? According to Nigerian labor law, if it is a union-based organization, there are certain things you can't go to court without first going through the union. But because sexual harassment is a human rights violation, the laws of Nigeria says you don't need to go through the internal structure. And that was why when people were arguing and saying that Senator Natasha should have gone ahead to go through the investigative panel. No, that's not the law. Because it's a human rights case, you can decide not to go internal. And I will do a follow-up session on the errors I think we make. Wait, why should you be investigated internally when the chairman of that committee was appointed by the person you accused? It's against the principle of natural justice, because it seems as if a beneficiary is the appointer of the person who investigates your case. But that's my next class where I was talking about that. So thanks for joining, Mrs. Akikumi. Yes, Aramide, you make a great point. Stigma is one of the reasons why people don't go legal. Yes, and that's why I'm talking about this. Don't be afraid for the stigma, because hey, you have been violated. You deserve justice. You deserve justice. And one of the reasons why we should be willing to chase this thing, as they will say in Nigeria, is the fact that you're likely going to be able to curb the behavior. For those of us that believe the Bible that says, for example, we are the salt of the world, we are the light of the world. There's a sense in which we interpret it to mean preaching the gospel, but it's also about stopping evil. We commend Mary Slessor, for example, for stopping the killing of birds or of twins in Nigeria. If you don't do anything about this Arosa, and he continues doing it, you're not being your own Maurice Slessor. So think about it. You could get good result from it. So I said you have two things to your advantage. One, you are your witness. Number two, you are your biggest witness. Now, the problem of the person that is a victim is to not believe that I am witness enough. You know what people say? I heard one very popular Nigerian analyst who said, it has become a you said, I said case. And I asked the person, but that's a very ridiculous thing to say. In law, there's always you said, you said. And you said is not a, you said, I said is not a problem. Remember, you said, I said. That means we're balanced. So because the lady or the guy accused somebody for sexual harassment, and the other person said, I did not do it, that doesn't mean anything. You are not at a disadvantage. At best, you are 50-50. You said, I said. If I have a right to say that you sexually harassed me, you also have a right to deny it. So you said is not working against me, because the way many people in the media has presented it is that you said is a disadvantage to the victim. Actually, that's one of the ways in which we do victim blaming in Nigeria. When we say, but you said. Now, you said, the other person said, it's cool. That's why we have called to answer the question. Please, for those who have organizations, if somebody brings out sexual harassment and they report to you and you say they said, please note, if you set up a panel to investigate it and the panel says we cannot conclude which of the two statements is true, and the person that goes to court sues you and sues the person for harassment, you will likely be forced to pay damages because your investigative panel did not determine who is telling the truth. The jurisprudence on harassment, particularly in the workplace, is that when a panel is set up, that panel must determine who is telling the truth. So don't say, you said, there must be something. Thanks for joining Baba Legbi. Baba Legbi practices from the UK, one of the people I've known all my life. So you are credible enough as a witness, right? So the second thing you need, and this is very, very important, is that you need something about what is called evidence. So what is evidence? Evidence is whatever you can use to prove anything. And I'm not going to spend time defining what is law. Sometimes there is evidence, there is proof. Proof is, so I can say, I own this house, I built this house. That's evidence. Then I bring my certificate of occupancy. That's proof. So sometimes you have evidence, but you don't have proof. And it's your lawyer that will help you to understand what you have is either evidence or proof. Because sometimes people will say, one man who works in a TV station, again, another one of those people who analyzes every subject in Nigeria, said, hey, that woman must come with ironclad evidence. Ignorance. You don't need ironclad evidence in a civil court. In a criminal court, you need ironclad evidence. In a civil case, you don't need ironclad evidence. Why? Because in a criminal case, the judge determines the case without any element of doubt. You must convince the judge without reasonable doubt in a criminal case, right? You must convince you without reasonable doubt. Thanks, Mr. DM, for joining. In a civil case, which I tell you to go, you are not to convince the judge with beyond reasonable doubt. You are to convince the judge in the balance of probability. All the judge wants to hear from you is, you said it, he said no. In the balance of probability, I believe you, I don't believe her. That's what the judge does in a civil case. The judge is not looking for ironclad evidence in a civil case. No. Actually, the judge may not be looking for an evidence. He may just be looking at your word alone. Because in a civil case, the judge takes the decision on the balance of probability. So the judge will say, based on what I heard from all the sides, in the balance of probability, and that balance of probability can be 51 to 49, can be 90 to 10. It's just that I believe this person more than I believe this person. So what is it that will make the judge believe you? The first thing is your own credibility. Thanks for joining, Mr. Akinola, Mr. Ojibara. Thanks, Pastor Aidu. Thanks for joining. The first thing is a question of your credibility. There are two things the judge wants to see in you as a witness. Number one is credibility. Number two is reliability. So, what is credibility? The judge wants to know whether you're telling the truth. So, the judge will want to know whether you're telling the truth. So, you must tell the truth. Now, please note, it is the truth based on what you believe, right? So the first thing the judge wants to check from you is this person telling the truth? The second thing the judge wants to check is reliability. Is this person reliable? So, for example, if you say I was drunk, then why you may be telling the truth, but the judge, but you say you were drunk, right? Yeah. So Elizabeth Hayo is asking, what of if there is no evidence or proof? That's why I just said you don't determine harassment based on evidence or proof alone. You determine on the basis of balance or probability. So somebody said, the man said, I want to sleep with you. You then ask him, or her to bring evidence. Please, what evidence do you have when somebody spoke to you? You don't have any evidence. You didn't say he touched you. You didn't say he raped you. You said he said this, which is sexual harassment according to Nigerian laws. So asking him to bring evidence. Thanks for joining, Mrs. Olumese, Mr. Kingsley, Mr. Ibitoye. Thanks for joining. So there is no evidence. So the judge knows you won't have it because you claim he verbally said so. So the judge is not going to ask you for evidence because he said so. Now, I've heard one lawyer, one of those our lawyers who comment about everything. Please note, I always tell people, lawyers have specialization. Stop listening to lawyers who can talk about constitution, talk about national assembly, talk about rape, talk about maritime law. Any lawyer who is invited to television to talk about all manner of subjects, don't listen to him. Why will I say so? Because law is specialism based. There are lawyers, virtually all the cases of sexual harassment that have been won in Nigeria have been won by few people because there are people that specialize in this. Let me tell you what shocks you. Do you know politicians, for example, don't approach any lawyer to do election cases? Most of the election cases that have been won in Nigeria, all the lawyers that have won the case, there are few of them because people know the lawyer that understand that do this. If I mention 5 names of actually most of the cases that have been won in Nigeria are won by those 5 guys. And you know those people I'm talking to. So in the case of sexual harassment, don't listen to every lawyer. There are lawyers that are there. So and thanks, Mr. Oshie, I should talk about it in the context of that. So what evidences can you bring? If you can have direct evidence, that's good. As in direct evidence, you can say, oh, he sent me a text message. That's a direct evidence. He sent me a voice note. That's a direct evidence. But the law also allows for what they call indirect evidence and what is called circumstantial evidence. In this case, it's not direct, but it's circumstantial. And I'm going to use that to explain what I want to explain next. So there was a recently decided case in Canada. The case was decided 3-4 weeks ago. This lady was hired, and she resumed on the first day. The manager decided to proposition to her. Mr. Ejiti is asking, what's the difference between sexual banter and sexual harassment? There's nothing called sexual banter. There's nothing called sexual banter. If the sexual banter, if you allow me to assuming the word exists that way, and the person you are bantering with does not feel comfortable with it, it is harassment. Something as simple as calling somebody our wife, and the person does not feel comfortable with it, that is sexual harassment. Thanks, Mr. Delaware, for joining. Right? So, please, let's stop doing sexual banter. You can banter over football. Any sexual harassment that puts the other person and the person does not, what the law says is unwanted. So the person doesn't want the banter, then don't do it. So if you can get direct evidence, like I was saying. Now, there are also cases of indirect. So I was given the case of, so this lady was hired. She resumed at work on the first day of work. And then our boss started to say wrong things about her. Thanks for joining Mr. Ajibola of CIPM. Started to say some wrong things, some unexpected things about her as the employer, and wanted to sleep with her day one. So this lady sent a text to the mom and say, "Mom, my boss wants to sleep with me. I don't know what to do." The mom replies and say, "Just make sure it doesn't happen," and all of that. Day two, day three, the boss sends out nude pictures in the office. And then the lady sends a text to her mom and say, "Mom, my boss is continuing. He has sent me nude pictures. This. Day four, the boss takes her to a store, buys her some dress, and told her to pose nude with those dresses he bought. The girl sent a text again to the mom and said, and the mom was surprised. So the mom on Thursday now said, "You know what? I'm coming to your office. I'll come with your dad. We need to talk with this man." So on Monday, that's the sixth day, the lady decides to resign from work and says she's writing because of sexual harassment and sues the employer for sexual harassment. Now, the case happened, and it was a one man organization. So it was only the girl and the man. The only evidence the girl brought to court was the text messages he was sending to the mom and the response from the mom. So that's the evidence she brought. The evidence she was sending text to the mom to say, "This person is harassing me, this person is harassing me." The only witness she called was the mom that received the text messages. The lady won the case. The man was asked to pay her compensation, damages for what he did. The case was decided a couple of years back in Canada. Why is that important? If somebody is sexually harassing you, you don't need somebody will say ironclad evidence. How does sending text to your mom become ironclad evidence? But because they just know that sexual harassment cases is private and between two people, therefore they will take text message you sent. And she won the case. That's the case in Canada. Somebody will say, "Well, it's Canada. You can't say it can happen in Nigeria. How will you win the case based on text message?" Oh, okay. Let me come to Nigeria. The most outstanding fundamental case on sexual harassment that has been won in Nigeria is a case called Ejike versus Microsoft. I'm going to tell you this story. This case is about a woman, Ejike, that sued Microsoft. That woman is a powerful woman. She sued Microsoft in Nigeria. She sued Microsoft globally and then sued Microsoft USA. This is a woman suing a global giant in Nigeria. She was working in Nigeria and she claimed her boss was sexually harassing her. Did she have evidence? No. What evidence did she have? None. But she said the boss will tiptoe behind her at work and grab her from the back. Right? Grab her from the back. Is there any evidence to show that a man was grabbing? That's no evidence. So she went to court and called only one witness. The witness, who is our colleague at work, said, "Yes, I have not seen him grab Ejike from the back, but I've seen him grab women from the back." That's the only evidence. That's the only witness that the woman called, just one witness, and said, "The man grabs women from the back, but I have not seen him grab this woman from the back." That's our own witness. Now, Microsoft and the man called their witness, and the witness said, "The man does not grab women." No, the witness of Microsoft said, "The man did not grab her." And the court asked, "How do you know?" The woman said, "Both of us sit opposite ourselves. So every time, anything that he does, he sees." So the lawyer under cross-examination said, "Are you saying you are always looking at this man and seeing him every time?" Of course, nobody can claim he does that. Then the lawyer now asks her a question. "Are you saying this man has not grabbed you before?" The lady said, "When we went on training abroad last year, the man grabbed me from behind." That's the witness of Microsoft admitting the man grabbed her. Case over. That's how AJK won the case. You notice there was no evidence. There was only a witness who said, "I have seen him grab other women." Then another witness that said, "He has grabbed me before." Because in sexual harassment, one of the things you may want to use is past behavior. So second case, right? Let me talk about the third case. And I love this case because it was a case against. So I've given the example of in Canada against a one-man business. The Ejike case was in Nigeria against a global giant. So let me give a case about somebody that sued an agency of the federal government of Nigeria. This was a case of a pastor, Mrs., who was working for the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria. You will be shocked. That's a regulator. And the CEO. Now, I'm not going to mention the name of the CEO, but the most disappointing thing about this case was that the court agreed this man sexually harassed this woman in Nigeria, National Industrial Court. Abimbola Patricia Yakubu versus Federal Reporting, no, sorry, Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria. The court said that this CEO sexually harassed this woman. That was the decision of the National Industrial Court. The painful thing was that the current president of Nigeria appointed this man to do a job for him a couple of years back. This same man that a court said he sexually harassed a woman was hired by the president to go and do an investigation for him. I'm not going to say anything more than that. In this case, this lady again did not have much of evidence, but what she had was circumstantial evidence. One of the evidences she brought was that I am supposed to be closing at 5 p.m., but the man keeps me in the office till 10. The HR manager confirmed that happens. That was part of the evidence she brought. The lady was working in the library. The CEO transferred her to his office. Circumstantial evidence. The lady reported to her husband. She brought the report from the husband. So when the lady went to court, this was against a federal government agency, so that you can understand. The lady called 3 witnesses. Of course, herself. She called an NGO that she went to report to. Then she called her husband. So if you notice, none of the witnesses can say, I saw what happened. All they came to say that she told us, and bam, she won the case. The court said in the balance of probability, the lady is telling the truth. Happened in Nigeria. I'm not mentioning the case. Last case, and this one is the most painful case to me to talk about. Stella Ode versus Dapa Ano. It was decided in National Industrial Court, Calabar Division. This woman was a widow. She has 4 children. Went to work in this organization. And this Mr. Ano decided to sexually harass her. So she claimed. So she went to court. Our case was very sad because the man said, "Yeah, a widow. I mean, you can be sleeping with me. Nobody will know." And the man said, "I don't want to do something like that and all of that." So this widow woman, then brings this letter of brought her invitation card to say she wants to get married, and then the man sacked her. The lady went to court, won the case. In fact, our case is one of the best we have seen. She got a total compensation of 16 million as damages. The man never touched her, but for propositioning and saying so, 16 million was what the court awarded in her favor for what they did. So I have 2 questions from Elizabeth Ayo and also from Reverend Adelowo Adeshino. Thanks for joining. He says, why is it the son that is being sued and not the abuser? The reason is because the law in Nigeria says that the employer has a duty of care. So if you are harassed, injured, assaulted at work, the institution that is your employer failed in its duty of care. So that's why you should sue the employer. But what you can do is to sue the employer and also sue the person. Now, you are lucky if your employer is a global institution. Why? So if it's Microsoft or Chevron or Shell, you can sue them in Nigeria and go to their country and sue them again. Because the law allows it, right? So that's all that. Somebody is asking, how can the employer be protected? There's no protection for the employer. The only person that should be protected is the victim. So the employer should ensure that that doesn't happen. And please note, Elizabeth Ayo is asking if the person didn't report to the employer, can the employer be sued? Yes, remember, it's a human rights case at the end of the day. At the end of the day. Thanks, Mr. Abiodun, for joining us, Mr. Kolawale Abiodun. So, evidence, you have evidence, direct evidence. Uh, Please note, Mr. Moruf Nasir is saying that how can the employer be protected by the HR manager? What typically happens in Nigeria is that once the person accused of sexual harassment is somebody very senior, the whole organization will start to work to protect the person. Please note, if you're HR manager, that you don't get yourself into trouble. There was a case like that where an HR manager was almost going to get into trouble because he had to tell lies to protect the person. You don't forget, the person that is making the allegation is, as of now, a victim. If you believe in human rights, if you believe in doing the right thing, if you believe in being fair to people, you have to be balanced. So the employer should be balanced. Remember, the both persons are your employees, right? Both of them are your employees, so you should be fair to both of them. Thanks for joining, Mrs. Ayinde. Thanks for joining me, Mr. Shiombo. You should be fair to them and not side the employer, like it typically happens. In the case of the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, it was so shameful because it was obvious that they were even lying on behalf of this person. Thanks. Ajoka makes the point that the employer must provide a safe place to work at the end of the day. So I need to start to round up now. So what counsel do I have for anybody that is a victim of sexual harassment? First thing is that I've I I'm sorry you went through what you went through. I wish you didn't do that. That didn't happen to you. I'm so sorry. It's unfortunate at the end of the day. But you must ask yourself, what do you want to do about it? So if it happens, you are still employed. If you want to, because let me say this, and I'm being open here. Uh, Sometimes the person who is harassed doesn't want to make trouble. He just wants the harasser to stop, right? So he will come and say, "Oh, I was this happened, that happened." I don't want him to lose his job. I don't want him to do anything. I don't. I just don't. I just want you to tell him to stop. Now, if that's what you want, then you're not going to go this route, right? You're only going to report to HR. And please, if that's the route you have decided to go, please, 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 don't ever give evidence, right? Don't ever give evidence to your employer. Don't, because it can be used against you. I have a couple of questions here. What's your take on the ongoing FOIO case? Interesting, the FOIO case, the Council of FOIA, this is Federal University of Technology, or this Federal University of Yekiti. The Vice Chancellor was accused of sexual harassment by the Deputy Director of Works, a female, and the case had been on, and then the council have said the man is not guilty, and the woman should apologize. Mr. Akeode Mayowa is asking, sorry, Mr. Akeode Mayowa is asking me, what do I think about it? I think the council did a poor job. The investigation was poor. If that lady hears me or you know her, please tell her to go to National Industrial Court. She is going to get a lot of support from the court because the investigation was not fair. They had requested that the vice chancellor should take a leave from work. He didn't. So there is procedural unfairness. Secondly, the council made a very big mistake because in their final report, they asked the woman to apologize to the man. Now, you don't do that. The remedy for sexual harassment is not apology. And that's where I'm going to deal with the question of Pastor Aborisha Rotimi. He says, what's the position of the law in the case of false accusation? Okay, so remember, it's a civil case. So John accuses Mary of sexual harassment, right? So John is the one there. The court will never say it was false allegation. The case is not about false allegation. So if I go to court, what the court will likely say is that I cannot prove that sexual harassment happened. The court will not say I made a false allegation. So if I go to National Exam and say my boss harassed me and I lose the case, the court will not say I made a false allegation because that's not part of what is before the court. It is after the case that the person I accused can now go back to that court and accuse me of false allegation. And in that case, it could be libel, it could be malice, it could be whatever defamation you want. So it's not the two cases. Now, is it possible that in that same case, the person accused can can be a contact claim and ask the court to accuse to say that I'm making false allegation? If it is a civil court, that wouldn't happen because of the fact that criminal liability for, except it brings a criminal libel case alongside that case, and the easiest defense the lawyer or the person will have is that the National Industrial Court does not hear criminal civil libel cases in this context, or they may accuse him of victimizing the victim. So when people say things that okay, what if the person is lying? Okay, the person may be lying, and let us agree, people lie. I mean, you can't say people don't lie. People have said lying since when they were young, so people could be lying. But the question is that to prove the person is lying is a very difficult thing. And please, I want to make this appeal to men. There's a general assumption, particularly those of us who have read the Bible and read the story of Potiphar's wife. Please, every woman is not Potiphar's wife. I'm sure you know that. So we should believe victims, and we should also respect the people they're accusing. And I say this with all sense of responsibility. What does the data say? There's a data produced by the FBI and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And all the cases of sexual harassment that have been found to be false in the US over a period of time is between 5 and 13%. Actually, you are more likely to be accused of theft than sexual harassment. That's what the data shows. So, it's just, it is what it is. So somebody says, can sexual harassment be solved by internal cases? It could be a tricky one. If somebody comes to report sexual harassment and says, let's just settle it internally, what if the person is not, decides to get annoyed and claim that you didn't do anything, right? So as an employer, you should be careful. Mayo Wakiode says they also blame the person for not saving the chats. Is it wrong to keep chats and evidence? Please, if somebody is sexually harassing you, please ensure you have those chats. Don't ever delete it. I will actually recommend you forward to somebody else, right? So that you can also have in more than one place at the end of the day. Somebody is asking, can the issue of sexual harassment be resolved through internal mechanism? Yes, you can, but my concern is that the person may tell you that, okay, let's resolve by internal mechanism, then get tired and says, accuses you for not taking any action at the end of the day. So as I close, what do I want to tell victims? I sympathize with your situation. I wish that it didn't happen to you. Number two, please note that the law recognizes the private nature of sexual harassment. Don't second-guess yourself. Oh, what if I'm not credible? What of this? Please note, even if you are not credible, the law protects you. There's a rape guard principle, which means that they cannot say because you accuse somebody in times past, you cannot accuse somebody today. So you know all those stories that people are sharing in the media. One person has accused Reni of mockery in the past, therefore she has a pattern of behavior. No, the rape guard principle says you can't bring that up. Actually, in order, if you bring that up in the US, the judge will actually tell the jury to discountenance it, because there's a special protection for sexual harassment and rape cases, in the sense that you cannot say because the person accused somebody yesterday, therefore it cannot be telling the truth today. So know that the law protects you. Number three, know that the law knows that sexual harassment is private. Thanks, Mr. Akijobi, for joining. Thanks, Ajoke Motaya, for joining. So because the law knows that sexual harassment is private, the law is not putting a lot of burden on you. Number four, you are better off pursuing a civil case. Like I said, go to the National Industrial Court. The judge will judge you the case based on the balance of probability. Please note, you have a burden of proof despite going to a civil court, but at the end of the day, the burden is lower when it's a civil case. Remember, I told you, in a criminal case, you have to convince the judge beyond reasonable doubt. In a civil case, you have to convince the judge in the balance of probability. And you've heard all the cases I brought. There's no case I brought where the person had one direct evidence. So in civil cases of sexual harassment, you can always use a lot of circumstantial evidence, and the judge will not have to be weighing and checking what at the end of the day. So my whole purpose is just to say, Hey, if you have been victimized or if you're a victim of sexual harassment, don't second guess yourself. Don't feel you don't have evidence. Don't say you don't have witness. You are the witness. You are the most credible witness that we can talk about because you've said it happened to you. So thanks, Calvin Precious, for your comments. So believe yourself, right? Number two is that, and somebody made that very brilliant point that once, Mr. Adewo, thanks for joining. Once somebody decides that I am going, once a woman says, I am going public about this sexual harassment, most likely the person is telling the truth. Yeah, Mr. Fuchs says malicious damage could happen. Yes, you can come back and say you want the person told you a lie, but hey, you will be shocked that the court will likely believe that person. Don't forget that those judges in the court, they are also Nigerians and Canadians and Americans, right? They understand what could likely have happened. They're just listening to both sides. If there is power dynamics, right? So it's richer versus poorer, senior versus junior, male powerful versus female powerful, you know that the judge already has an idea. Now, if your case is going to be very bad, you now go to a judge that has developed. So, if you go to the National Industrial Court, there some judges have developed jurisprudence around the subject. If you go to that person's court, you are likely going to get a lot of defense that will help you. As I close, I just want to say the person that, like I said, the purpose of this session is to support the victim. Now, if you have also been wrongly accused, you will also need to be protected because justice says you should be treated fairly too. So I'm going to do a second part of it. In this second part, I'll be focusing on how employers, organizations should handle cases of sexual harassment and how people that are sexually harassed but are wrongly sexually harassed should respond. Please note what I said I'll be talking about because wait, we are all in this together. Yeah, so that's the question Mrs. Firemi just asked. How should people protect themselves and not be mistakenly or unintendedly accused of sexual harassment? How can we keep all ourselves safe? Thanks for joining, Nicholas Udiete, my good friend. So that's my second part. I'll be talking about in the course of the week. What should an employer and organization do about sexual harassment when somebody brings it up? Two, what should you do if you are accused of sexual harassment wrongly? Because when you're accused of sexual harassment, one of the things the judge is looking at, you remember, is listening to evidence, but is also listening to your testimony. What should you do? And then the third thing I will be talking about is I will make direct inference to the Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and the Akpabio case. I will speak directly to it, and I will likely inform you what I think if that case went to the National Industrial Court, what the judge will say. So next week, what should you do? And that one, what I'll be talking about will be about anybody can be there. Anybody who reports to you that was sexually harassed, the law says you have a responsibility to act. So I'm a pastor. It doesn't concern me. If I come to your church, there's night vigil. I go to it myself. Somebody says, "Hey, come here, fine boy," and I sue for sexual harassment. You'll be in trouble. So pastors, please join. Church leaders, please join. School owners, Ms. Olumesi has asked a question. A 4-year-old says, "My teacher touched me." You say, "No, it's just a 4-year-old. That's the way small children talk." You are in trouble. That child, if it tells the parents, they take the you're good. So if you're a school owner, be involved. Oh, I just have a club. I'm president of Houston Association. Oh, we have a meeting. Somebody says, I held a party. Yes, I had a party. Somebody was sexually harassed. You can get into trouble. So join the next one. So that's why focus is what should you do if you are accused of sexual harassment? If somebody reports sexual harassment to you, how should you investigate? How should you determine credibility? Secondly, is okay. So what should you do if we are wrongfully accused of sexual harassment? And I know this should interest most of the men that are watching it because you ask yourself that simple question. Thanks for joining my Oga the Top, Mrs. BC Sonjo Yahweh. Thanks, great woman, I must say. Thanks for joining Mr. Mayowa. So next week I'll also then be talking about the question of what should you do if you are Joseph in the biblical story, Joseph was biblically accused of sexual harassment. Please, did you know that in that story in the Bible, the wife of Potiphar had evidence? Do you know? She had evidence, but was it correct evidence? Because people say if she doesn't have evidence and she's not telling a lie, the Potiphar's wife had evidence, but she was telling a lie. So evidence can be manufactured. Just for us to keep that aside. So what should you do? How should you protect ourselves? There's a model that has been developed that is used to judge whether this person actually committed the offense. I'll be talking about the model next week. And anybody who is offended. Now, it could look as if I'm arming you, but it's just I'm providing you tools to fight anybody that kills you. But justice and fairness is for us to ensure both sides get the best. Yes, thanks, Mr. Yodeji, for joining. Thanks, Mr. Kolawole or Rotan, for joining. And then I'll be talking about what should we do about this question of sexual harassment. How should we ensure that? Okay, I need to stop now because I want to respect your time. I know many people have many things to do, but please. And then I said the last thing I'll do is that next week I'll directly speak about the allegation of Senator Akpoti Oduara and Senator Akpabio on sexual harassment. And I'll be speaking from the point of view of if it was a workplace and this happened and that senator goes to the National Industrial Court, what would the court be looking at for so that we don't run the same mistake? I will actually tell you next week what I think the court will determine if you went to the National Industrial Court. So you will hear me tell you directly that I feel I'm not going to say who is telling the truth or who is not telling the truth between of them, but I'm going to say who will not win the case. I think you know who will not win the case. Let's leave that to next week. Okay, so I'm going to stop on that note. Thanks for joining, Mariam Shaibu. Thanks for joining, Agnes, for joining. Thanks, Agnes, my friend from Sobol. I really appreciate it. So next week, I will also post on my Facebook the day I'll be doing that. I have to respect because next week Sunday is Easter Sunday. I want you to enjoy your Easter, so we may have to do it much earlier and then have that conversation. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate all the people on Facebook, all the people on YouTube. Please, one thing you can do for me is that you can just share this with people. A friend of mine was saying he doesn't believe sexual harassment is really correct. He believes this thing is they are lying against men and all of that. So my friend now said, "Hey, Mr. Ejiti says Senator Natasha will not win the case." Prophet. Let's wait till next week. We'll look at the ingredients of both sides and we'll use that to determine who will not win and who will win. Of course, we can only predict. It's when you go to court. But like I said, let the interest of justice. Thanks for joining, Mr. Akiode. Thanks for joining, Mr. Bassi. I want to thank you for your time. Have a terrific week. I wish you all the best. And please be careful. Don't harass anyone. Don't also get yourself in a situation if you harass. Look for protection at the end of the day. Thanks, Mr. Akiroko Akeola. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. Have a great week ahead. And thanks for joining. And it's been an interesting time together. Thanks and have a great week ahead. Bye-bye. Thank you.